This slide here shows you some of the progress that's been made in recent times. Yesterday they put in the power packs and the other units that they needed to do to start getting the pumping operations going. And you can see a slide here of the 3 balconies that we talk about, or platforms that they're operating on. These are hung off the side of the ship and they provide a safe, flat working area for those machinery. The next slide shows a close-up, and you can see that what they've got is they've got 4 different units. The first one here is a compressor, then you've got a power pack, a power generator, so they can run machinery and tools. Then you've got a hydraulic power unit, and then the next one on the other side of the ladder is another pump. So what they do is they have the first pump which drags it out of the tank, then they have another pump which boosts it along the lines out towards the vessel. I just got back from an overflight not long ago, and this is the scene out there at that time. Beautiful, nice conditions. We've got the Awanui into position. That's behind that is a tug, the Ahuriri from Napier, and everything's set up, ready to go. And you'll see here the mooring arrangement that they've come up, which is the best way that they can set it up so that the heavy fuel oil from the Awanui, heavy fuel oil from the Rena can then be transferred into the Awanui. And you might be able to see the orange dots. Well, that's a floating line. And so now that we're pumping and dealing with the heavy fuel oil, they can concentrate on being able to push it through. They don't have to be as worried about the temperature of the fuel, whereas previously they had it suspended in the air to keep the fuel from getting cold. So now it's cold, they can just force it through like a sausage maker, if you like, where it just keeps pushing it through. That's my phone up the back beeping away because I'm expecting news on what's happening next. Go to the next slide. Now you'll recall that fairly early on in the operation, there were 2 fuel tanks on the port side and 2 fuel tanks on the starboard side. And you have a look at these two, the one up the front, that's the number 3 starboard. And you can see the big crack going right through number 3 starboard. 3 port, going right through 3 port. Now that, and one of the very first operations that the Salvage did was to pump all the fuel out of 3 port into 5 port. So that meant that the early actions of the Salvage actually prevented around 350 tonnes of oil escaping into the ocean. The other fuel tank, the 5 port, is where the larger square is, and you can see that's where the operations are. What they've done is they've had to penetrate the deck, so where you've got the hull and then the deck comes over, they had to penetrate a number of holes in that deck to be able to get their hoses through and down into a small hallway, if you like, that goes the length of the vessel with all the pipes in it. And then they have taken off the manhole cover. One of the things that they're concerned about is that the atmosphere inside that tank, they can't actually get in there and work. So if they have any problems, they have to make sure that the atmosphere in that tank is okay for them to actually be able to work. So they've been venting that gas off all day, trying to get it down to an area of amount of fumes in there good enough so that someone can actually operate in that environment. And what this diagram shows is the fuel budget. So what I mean by fuel budget is that means how much did we start with before they had the accident, and then how much is left and where is it left. And so this sets out the scene for the prioritisation of the targets that the Salvage have. Number 5 port, you'll recall that's the one they're currently working on, that's got around 770 tonnes in it. Then you've got the 2 big settling tanks. Those settling tanks are the ones that they use to actually drive the engines on the day-to-day, and so they keep just topping those up. So they're like your car's fuel tank, if you like. Nice and handy to the engine. It's easy for them to heat up to a higher temperature still, and it's able to be used straight away. Now we've seen all the ones in blue on thermal imagery, so we know that they are there. The one on the orange one on 5 starboard, we're less sure about, and we're less sure about because that one's underwater. It hasn't got a thermal signature, so we can't actually see whether it's there. The Salvage are pretty sure that it's there. It doesn't appear to be ruptured on the inside. And when we've done overflights most mornings, we haven't seen any signs of oil coming from that area. But the real thing is we don't quite know about that until they start trying to get to that tank. And one of the ways they're going to end up doing that is they're going to end up having to do what's called a hot tack. So effectively they put a flange onto the outside of the hull with divers, and then they put a tack arrangement on the end of that flange, and then they drill right through the whole lot. And then they're able to close off the valve and then put the hoses on it and extract it out that way. So it's really quite a tough way to exit the oil out of that hole, but it's the safest and best way that they've got. The budget part, though, says that there's been about, we know that there's 1,000 tonnes on there. We know that there's about another 360 odd tonnes. We're sure's there, but we can't confirm it. And so that means that it says that there's been about 350 tonnes lost overboard. Now, some of that may be still in the vessel, maybe in the duck heel or maybe within the holds. So I think the real point is that there will be more oil released. How much will be released, we don't know yet. When will it be released? We don't know. When the vessel moves, there will be oil coming out of it. There's still light sheens of oil coming. A light sheen just means the rainbow colour on the water. But there will be more oil coming out. When? We don't know. Yesterday I talked about the vessel being set on a precarious nature on board the reef. And this diagram shows that. So you'll see that the forward section of the vessel is stuck pretty firmly. I'm quite happy with that. It's got about 90 metres behind that big crack, which is sitting nicely on the reef. Then it's got another 60 metres of the vessel, which is hanging over deep water. The only thing holding that vessel in that position, when you think about it, 90 metres, 60 metres, there's not a lot of difference in that. What's holding it up is the buoyancy of all the air in the engine room. So that's keeping that vessel stuck on the reef. The naval architects have calculated it's got about 7,000 tonnes of ground reaction. That's how much pressure it's putting down on the top of that reef. A good swell will lift about 600 tonnes. So it gives you a measure of how much it can be moving through the swell and other wave action. Weather forecast, I know that will be asked next. Weather forecast, we've got today is good, tomorrow is good, but then on Monday night it starts getting, swell's okay, but we start higher waves. And so that's what we're preparing for at the moment. It's just another view looking up from behind showing that hull, the stern of the vessel overhanging the buoy. And another one from the other side. Remember that the list is towards the port, so it's listing the port, and so that the port side is sitting harder onto the rock than the starboard side. Just another diagram. If you go back to you can see in this diagram there's I'll try using the machinery. Just about there, that's where the crack is. And so you can see, remembering from that crack, 90 metres back is on relatively firm ground, but then there's another 60 metres which is hanging over very deep water.